speak. Oh, hello and welcome to the Ion I8 Championship. You are joined live with me, Despicable Devil, and Project's user, who isn't currently here, but he will be shortly. And we are live. He is live. We are live from Zurich, as you can see, as the drivers are currently midway through qualifying with 2 minutes and 50 seconds remaining. So we wait to see who will take pole position. Currently Nicholas on pole, followed by Dark YZ92, one of the promising drivers which we saw previously in our last race of round 1. So we'll see what they can pull out with 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. And Project seems to be back with us. Project, how are you doing?
I'm fine.
Good to hear. What are your predictions then for this qualifying session? Who do you think is going to be able to take pole position and follow closely behind?
Well, we've seen before with previous races here in I8 that the qualifying results will typically follow suit with the practice results. So let's pull those up and see if we can make any decisions on who could come first. And it does seem as if the order has stayed in that way, apart from FF Devon, who is out on track right now, setting their first couple of times. FF Devon was fastest in the free practice session for I8, so maybe FF Devon will be the one to take pole here.
Yeah, looks like that way. I think he'll closely be followed by Sims, who we saw a lot of pace on in the previous weekend. He was able to take a lot of points home, so we'll see what he can do. And also, obviously, his team's second, and he's second in that drivers' championship. So he's gonna be right on the tail of FF Devon throughout the whole of this weekend. As we wait now, with 50 seconds remaining of this qualifying session. And it looks like, as we speak, Nicholas is going to hold on to pole position. Doesn't look like anyone else is on a fast lap. It appears FF Devon isn't here for the qualifying session. So that will have no significance on him taking pole, neither with Sims. And Nicholas improves in the third sector, unable to improve on his lap time, however. And there we see the qualifying session is now finished, as we see the drivers finishing their laps. FF Devon has turned up for this session, currently only in P7. That's going to be disappointing for him and the team. He's still in that top 10 though, and qualifying is one half of the race. But the actual race is the second half with the feature and sprint race. So he's going to be starting off 7. We'll see what he can do, see how many positions he's able to make up. Other drivers of significance, we have Father Ewok driving that Deeper Dolphin electric car. He's rounding off that top 10 position.
So the last couple of drivers coming around to finish their laps, there are some drivers that seem to be improving, but it might just be in vain. With about 10, 11 seconds separating the entire field, it might not be as competitive as we saw last week.
Yeah, and it's interesting, we haven't saw, it seems to be a poor turnout of drivers, only 15, considering the number of teams. We should be seeing around a number of 20 if all are to attend, give or take. So yeah, I don't quite know what's going on with a few teams there. Possibly some inactivity. I'm sure the teams who have turned up though aren't going to be complaining about that, as we've only got 2 drivers to finish their laps. Now they may have been aborted, so that is pretty much our order for qualifying then. Taking pole position is Nicholas, second is Dark, followed by Random New Person, Officer Cap and Trash Deem Meme, rounding off that top 5 for the first sprint race of this I8 Championship.
Someone we saw who was very quick last week, Finale, has sort of doesn't look as competitive this week based on the qualifying order being 10, correction, 2 seconds off the pace in qualifying. So hopefully he's worked on his race pace more than he's worked on his quali pace.
Yeah, we will wait and see though. So, whilst we finish qualifying, let's go on and head over to the intro for today's IA Championship. Hello and welcome to round 2, season 1 of the Ion I8 Championship. Today you're joining us live from Zurich, as you can see the lovely track in the background. And today's track is a very challenging course with 21 corners and 3 long straights with an incredibly tight section finishing the lap. And the average lap time which we can expect, obviously seen from quality, is around 1 minute 30 seconds, give or take, depending on the driving ability of the driver in hand. So we now stand by and wait for the first sprint race to get overway. As we stand by now for the drivers to begin lining up for the start of this sprint race here in Zurich. And Project, who do you think is going to, considering the lineup we have at the moment from qualifying, who do you think is going to be able to come home and take the win, and who's going to finish off our podium come the end of this sprint race?
Well, Nicholas was consistently very strong in qualifying in the Pro Drive car with the 97 racing alongside him, but they're both very closely matched, only 1.5 tenths separating Darkwisey and Nicholas, so I'm sure they will have an interesting battle. I'm fairly certain that we changed the format from last week to remove the sprint race, but I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, we will quickly check that. Meanwhile, for those of you who aren't aware, we won't have a certain set of cameras today due to there being a slight issue. But it should be okay. All should be as normal as we can possibly get it, so apologies for that inconvenience. Let's wait now for the final few cars to get set up on that grid. And there is the leaderboard reset as we wait for the final ones, possibly a jump in and jump out from the director, who is thanks Sam today. And there is the command for jump in, jump out as the drivers reset the leaderboard to get their names set up there correctly. Obviously don't want any midway issues through with the leaderboard causing any kind of restarts.
So there are 3 slots on the grid which are absent of their driver.
Yeah, there may be a possible issue here, some kind direct aside, as the drivers have been called off to commence their formation lap.
We do seem to be having a lot of issues when it comes to the i8 series.
We can cope with it though, as long as we've got some good racing to take place today. There you can see our helicam. Following some of those cars go about as we seem to get away with this race. We'll be starting momentarily. There is the leaders coming round for this formation lap. That was your pole position qualifier who crossed previously in that Pro Drive livery. Obviously Nicholas, followed by Dark. There we see them coming along that straight, that fast right-hander, flicking them back on. Quite technical in a few of these sections.
So 17 laps of i8 racing will be ahead of us. That is not including our formation lap.
There is one of the Dolphin Electric Racing cars in a striking light blue and dark blue livery. And we see there the Tron EP car as well. That is the driver of FF Devon. As the drivers are now forming themselves back up on the grid for the start of this i8 race.
It seems some drivers are having issues lining themselves up in their grid slot. Some drivers weaving about the track, but traditions will be traditions.
And we're waiting now for the light to begin. Once again, apologies for the inconvenience with the camera sync glitch at this stage, so best we're going to be able to deliver for you guys currently. There we are watching the leader, who is Nicholas, driving that striking livery, and for that light sequence to begin. Let's get these 17 laps of racing underway. 16 drivers set up on this grid.
FF Devon has parked himself or themselves across the track and seem to be competing for the 7th place slot. I'm not sure why, but
There's the command to jump in and jump out. Resetting the leaderboard as we wait for these 17 laps to get underway. There's the lights. 5 red light. And they go. Nicholas seems to get a reasonable start. Dark left there driving that as appears we
There's this shaping up for Nicholas to be taking the lead with the Innotech and the Dolphin racing behind him. And the 97 seems to have taken the lead. Nicholas might have made a mistake. He's fallen back quite considerably as one of the Dolphins goes straight into the wall. It is a very big lead for the 97 Racing of Dark YZ at the moment, with the only car that looks like can challenge him being the Innotech Officer Cap very closely behind.
Yeah, apologies for that microphone inconvenience there as we're following Tingers around this tight section. That looks like a McLaren car who got caught up on the inside, just taking it slightly too tight, causing him to collide with the barrier. There we are on board with him, Roblox Master YT. As he comes into that fast right-hander to flick him out onto that long straight. Trying to get as much slipstream as he can from the cars in front, likely to behind as he crosses that line, and we see the driver's board update. Dark, currently our leader, he's out in front. You can see that section gets really tight there for those i8 cars. I mean, they're not particularly big, but it's still very technical. They've got to be so careful on the steering and acceleration here, making sure they get their braking points perfect. Dark sets a purple sector 1. He's really on a push, going right through those curve sections, really pushing the car to the limit.
Yeah, I took a couple of laps during FP2 for Formula E, and it's really difficult to get the track right. You have to push the limits, and you have to really have to judge where you can brake, because it is mostly blind corners, and I think that is the essence of this track.
Yeah, now we are following RCS, obviously one of the famed YouTubers within the Ion community, making a range of videos on different racing games. He's driving that Red Bull Petronas car today. I think he was recently signed as a reserve, so he's been called up to the ranks to race today. He's currently sitting in a respectable P9. That's going to get pretty significant points for his team, but he'll be doing what he can. As he's right alongside the cars in front and behind him. That is Runaway Driver ahead, followed behind by Trash Damim.
Runaway Drive doesn't seem to be running away from anybody. He's in P8 even.
Yeah, he's quite a way behind the driver in front of him, a random new person, and about a second in front of Arceus, so nothing too significant as we're now following again Tingers. He's doing pretty significant, all the way up in P4. Oh, as he hits the wall, round and round and round he goes, trying to re-enter the track. That is not going to be good for the team or himself, as he loses a significant number of positions, falling back and back and back. We will see what position he falls into once the leaderboard updates. He was in P4, was holding the fastest lap, still will do after this update, but we'll see what position he's updated in. It looks like he's behind that trying to see the update, which position is he in, and we see it, P9 is the position he is now in. Gap of 15.2 seconds to the leader, so that has really cost him 5 positions. That's going to be extremely unfortunate for him and his team. Let's take back a look at the leader of Dark, driving that Cognizant livery. He's got quite a healthy gap to the driver behind him of Officer Cap, 6.6 seconds. And Officer Cap obviously holding the fastest lap at the moment, so he'll get that bonus point. Oh, Dark just doesn't quite get that exit off the corner right as he hits into the exit barrier, nearly spinning around, managing to recover it. That's really unfortunate. Hasn't cost him too much.
That corner in particular is very difficult to get right.
Yeah, it seems to be quite tight as the barriers seem to come together. So yeah, not much runoff, I imagine.
The issue with that corner is very deceiving. Many drivers try to take it as quickly as they can. They think, oh, in as they get around it, they sort to. They've already come in too quickly and they're already going to make the mistake there. So many drivers misjudge themselves on that corner, and it has cost a lot of drivers dearly.
Yeah, definitely. Let's cast our eyes back to P4 for a moment, if we can try and get on board with random a new person. He's currently maintaining that position at P4. He's got a gap of about half a second to the driver behind him of Nicholas, so he's going to be trying to maintain that gap as much as he can. Obviously, trying to get as much points as he can. The higher up he is, the more points he's getting. Exponential increase. So if he can hold on to that position, and he's going to try and edge forwards to Finelli in front of him for that podium position. The gap is only 2.4 seconds, so we'll see what he can pull out. Obviously, only 4 laps into this 17-lap race. Interestingly, Tingers is making a bit of a recovery. He's at purple sector 2, now in P8.
People aren't having a particularly good day at Curious. 171 seconds down after 4 laps. That's about a lap down, maybe 2 even. He will not be very happy.
That's incredibly significant. Yeah, I'm not sure quite what's going on there. Possibly a series of multiple accidents, but he is where he is as we now follow Father Ewok, the second of the Dolphin electric racing vehicles. He's currently sitting in P10. His gap to lead, as you can see on that leaderboard on the left, is 17 seconds, as he's currently in a battle, by the looks of it, with the driver in front of him, as they're now following Officer Cap. He's in a very respectable P2, holding the fastest lap as we speak, and he's really trying to hunt down that front driver of Dark in that cognizant vehicle, as we talked about earlier, with a 3.75 second gap.
And the gap is increasing, but I'm sure Officer will not want to keep it that way. I'm sure he'll push as hard as he can. He will want that podium. And even the win, mind you.
Yeah, as I'm sure many of these drivers are having their eyes towards the front of that grid, but we will see what they can do.
Officer can see the 97 racing in front of him. You can hear, just with his engine tones, that he is pushing very, very hard just to try and catch up to this driver in front of him. And yes, the gap does come down by 7 tenths on one sector. Even further now. And a further 6 tenths, the gap has been decreased between Officer and Dark. Is Dark making mistakes, or is he just under a lot of pressure by Officer? It seems to be that he's under pressure and he's not taking as many risks as he could be taking.
FF Devon, interestingly, obviously we saw him, well, he is currently on top of that Drivers' Championship. He's not having I mean, it's not a terrible performance, but not the greatest of performance currently. He's sitting in P6, 14.4 second gap to the leader who is still Dark. So he'll see if he can make up as much time as possible, but 14 seconds is quite a wealthy gap for him to make, especially considering Dark is now just at a purple sector 1. He is really on a push. Fastest sector we have seen of this race.
Beating Dark's best first sector, so FF Devon is really on a push. Yeah,
we'll see what he can do. We'll be watching that close. I can't speak. We'll be watching that gap incredibly carefully. Still at 14.4, we wait for an update. Dark also improving his second sector, so he'll be trying to push as much as he can. Perhaps FF Devon will be able to take the fastest lap away. It appears not. He's gone yellow in sector 2. We'll see what he can pull out of the bag in this third sector.
FF Devon has been a driver who has proved to have constant pace, but he doesn't seem to be able to show it here.
Yeah, he's right in close. He was right in close contention with Tingers there. So we'll see how that goes as we take a look back at the leader of Dark. He's sitting very comfortably there. Not too
Officer
comfortably,
Cap made a
obviously,
mistake in turn 1, which has put Nicholas very close and putting Officer under pressure even for that P2 position.
Yeah, that cap's dropped to 5.4 seconds, so that's going to be unfortunate for him, and I'm sure Dark is very happy about that news, if his engineers have told him that. He's sitting even more comfortably as we are on the 7th lap out of 17 of this I8 race. And make sure to let us know who you are supporting, who you want to win this race. Still got 10 laps to go, so not quite halfway, nearly there though. Still following Dark now, continuing his push. He's doing really well. That gap has dropped slightly. Officer's slowly clawing back at him. Gap is 4.412 at the moment. Oh, correction, down to 3.4. So that's a second that Officer Cap's taken out of the gap between him and Dark within that lap there. That's going to be really significant. We're now on board with Titanic is good. Second driver to run. He's slightly further behind. He's sitting in a P14 gap of 81.6 seconds to the leader.
So it seems to be back and forth between Dark and Officer. Officer pulling a gap to lessening the gap, correction, to Dark, and then Dark pulling away. So these drivers seem to be very equally paced, but all in the wrong areas. Either one driver is less consistent than the other, or they are just equally consistent. Or Officer now reduces this gap by a second in a sector, so Officer is on a mission for that lead. He's going to be taking the lead back very early in this race. He's got just under 10 laps now to catch up to Dark. You'd be thinking that he would be a little more conservative at this point, but apparently not. .8 seconds between these two drivers. Dark will definitely start to feel the pressure of being chased down, especially being in the lead. That might be why he is losing so much time. He's just taking it as carefully as he can, not to make any major mistakes. Now, so that is a car that has broke on the track. That's a new sight. The gap out to Officer sets the purple first sector. Has widened a little in the second sector. Maybe he made a mistake I did not see, or maybe he's just backing off a little, trying not to make any mistakes himself. The gap has widened a lot, but is back to 1.8 seconds where we were last lap, so it seems to just be a constant cycle of these drivers trading sector times.
Yeah, all of them doing as much as they possibly can. So you get slightly more than the other and try to get the upper hand and attempt to win this race and get as many points as possible.
Oh, as Dog makes a mistake, that's a big gap for Officer Cap to take the lead, and he has.
And it seems minor mistakes like that can completely cost you a race. As we've seen there, that's going to be really devastating for that team. I'm sure Dark is so sad with that.
But it seems like Officer Cap has made a slightly less of a mistake, but it has cost him equally as much. Dark has immediately got back on the attack for that lead.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do now over these next 7 laps. So they've got quite a way to slug it out between the two. See who comes out on top. In theory, on paper, it should be Dark. He's had a better pace for the rest of this lap. But, you know, Officer's been clawing back at him, so we can see what he does. We can see what he does over these next 7 laps. It appears he missed the apex on the corner back there. Hits that corner lovely, getting so close to the wall. There he is on that home straight as he crosses the line. Updated gap is going to be 9 tenths separating the two. So
Correction,
Dark,
1.3 drivers,
yeah.
but Officer Cap goes too deep into turn 1, sacrifices his exit a little bit, but Dark might not be able to capitalize on that.
Seems like Nicholas is now beginning to join in on this party here. He's only 2.26 seconds away from the leader. He's also got the fastest lap and just set a fastest sector 2 of this race. So he's on a massive push. We'll see what he can do. In fact, he does take the position from Dark now. He is 1.4 seconds from the leader of Officer Cap and on a push, setting a fastest sector 1 we've seen so far. Nicholas, oh, it looks like he's made an error there. He clipped the wall. That is really not going to be good for him. I think he's going to lose that position back to Dark. Oh, that's so unfortunate. He was on a push, going for that lead, taking so much time out of the leaders, and then didn't quite get one of those corners right. And there is the update. He is 3 seconds behind Officer Cap and about just over a second behind Dark, who's ahead of him in P2. We'll see if he can take any more time out of those two, trying to push. As Officer Cap makes a mistake there. Dark is right on his tail. Officer made a mistake clipping that wall. A mistake we've seen way too often, costing drivers significant amounts of time. They're crossing the line, so we'll see what the updated gap is. Officer crosses it, Dark crosses it, 0.4 seconds is the gap separating Dark and Officer. Now on lap 12, we'll see what the two can do. Nicholas, 1.479 seconds behind the leader. So he's going to be on a push to try and join in with that party. Them 3 topping off the podium as we speak. Tinger's in P4, driving that Dolphin electric racing car. He's 18 seconds behind the leader, so he's quite a way behind that 3-pack, followed by Finelli, who is second behind Tingers.
Back at the front, it just seems to be a battle of attrition at the front between Officer, Dark, and Nicholas. They're all waiting. In fact, they're depending on the other drivers making mistakes in order to gain positions. That's sort of how racing works, but you'd expect these drivers to be sort of pushing each other to their limits. As the gap between these 3 drivers seems to be sustained in mostly the same way. As Dark makes a big mistake, hitting that wall there, that's going to cost him a lot of time, leaving Nicholas in P2. Officer Cap seems to got rid of whatever overconfidence he may have had, and has been able to sustain the gap from the other 2.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do now as we're getting updated as they cross the line. Officer still leading. He's created quite a healthy gap. Nicholas 2.366 seconds behind him. Also holding the fastest lap, so he will get that bonus point, contributing to himself and the team. Dark topping off that top 3 podium again. He is 4.4 seconds behind Officer Cap in the lead.
Yes, it seems as if Dark has taken a very large hit to his confidence, crashing twice in similar fashions, hitting the wall on the exit, which had basically stopped his car, and lost him a lot of time.
Has indeed Officer now setting the fastest Sector 1, which we have seen of this race. He's on a massive push. With only 5 laps remaining of this race, he's going to try and get away from that pack and take the win for today. We'll see what he can do. Unable to improve in that second sector. That would look like a Vixala in the background. Seemed to miss the corner. Not quite sure what happened there. But anyway, continuing on with Officer Cap.
I think they just forgot that the corner exists, although I'm not sure how you can do that. There's about 500 meters to remember.
Yep, that is the question, as we see Nicholas take that corner almost perfectly. He's right up against that wall, didn't clip it.
So Officer once again pulling the gap, and it seems like Dark has been able to make up whatever time he lost, or Nicholas himself made a mistake. But either way, it is Dark in P2 now.
Oh, Nicholas spinning round and round and round on the exit of that corner there. That's really unfortunate. Just couldn't quite get that corner right. That's such a shame. He was driving such a perfect race. Just couldn't quite get it right in that thin section, and around his car went. And that's going to cost significant time. The gap we're told at the moment is 14 seconds, but I'm sure that will increase.
He seems safe to Tingers, but that might not be the case very soon.
Yeah, it appears his eyes aren't necessarily going to be towards the front two ahead of him now, but 2 Tingers behind him. I mean, it's still quite a healthy gap of 8 seconds. Well, update of 7 seconds now, but still nothing that he can disregard. Now on lap 14, 3 laps remaining of this race.
And Dark made another mistake that's going to cost him even more time. Officer has been driving an extremely clean race up to this point, so it's led him to be able to take the lead of this race. It was sort of a person that we didn't consider to be a serious contender for the lead. We might have been proven wrong.
We may have been proven wrong indeed. Now, 10 seconds. That is really significant between the two. I wonder perhaps if Dark has made a mistake, because he's dropped down, but Nicholas hasn't, and the rest of the grid hasn't on that time gap. So I think he's made a mistake quite significantly.
He did hit the wall.
6 seconds, right then. Yeah, that would make sense for it. It's a real shame. He's driven such a great race, was in the lead for so long, and with only 2 laps remaining.
It's all been taken away from him.
They're currently on. Yeah, it sure has indeed. A bit like Max Verstappen today, hey?
We don't talk about that.
Except Dark is still racing with us. There he goes, navigating through such a tight section where the track gets so thin. This is where we saw Nicholas make an error earlier. Oh, Dark doesn't quite get that corner right. I'm not sure if he clipped the inside too much and then ran into the exit, but yeah, that was a big wall hit for him. And that massively decreases your speed, brings you to a near almost stop. So yeah, that gap's now at 11.1. We'll see what it is updated when they cross through that Sector 1 lap. As we begin this penultimate lap, let's take a look at our leader, who is Officer Cap at the moment. Driving brilliantly. He's been able to nab the lead of this race for the last few laps. Well, when I say last few, quite a significant number to be fair, as he navigates his way through that fast left-right section to that right-hander. getting the exit nicely onto that long straight. Let's take a look at Tingers now in P5. He's having a great battle with the car ahead of him, which is Random Noob Person. Them two fighting out for that P4 position just behind the podium. We'll see what he can do. It's all going to be about minimising the amount of mistakes they can make, as we're still on the penultimate lap. 16 out of 17. Coming around onto this fast straight at the back. It appears visually that Finelli is, Random Noob is ahead. But the leaderboard is saying different. Cornering through this final tight section. Again, this is where we saw Nicholas make a mistake earlier. As we go on to our final lap now, Officer Cap in the lead, beginning this final lap. He's got 1 lap to hold on to that lead, maintain that 10-second gap, and he will take home the champion, well, not the championship, he'll take home the maximum number of points. Not quite getting that fastest lap, so one he's lost there, but still pretty much as he can possibly get, both for him and his team, and I'm sure that'll put him ahead of FF Devon in the constructors. Interestingly, FF Devon not getting a significant number of points, still something, but not quite as significant as P1, which he had in the sprint race previously. No show from Sims either, who was also second, driving that fleet car, I believe. So that's unfortunate for them, as Officer Cap rounds that tight section again, which we've seen so many drivers make such minor mistakes. Gap is still down to 9.9 now, so Officer Cap's lost about half a second. Possibly he's touched a wall or two through this section.
But that is fine, because he is going to come over the line as long as he doesn't stop on this straight to come and win this race.
Yeah, that is a brilliant drive from him. He's nabbed that race from the final half of it. Good stuff from him as he slams into that back wall. He comes home to take the win of this IA Championship race, taking home near maximum points, pushing him to the top. I'm not sure if he'll take the lead of the championship. We'll try and run those numbers and see if we can get that for you later. Service seems to be experiencing just a little bit of lag now. Dark comes home to take P2, and Nicholas comes home to take P3. That is our podium sorted there. Tingers in that Dolphin electric racing car, coming home to take P4. What a great drive he's had as he beats Random Noob for that P5, who seems to have prematurely disconnected. Finelli now making his way eventually through the finish line to take P6. There we go. And the next driver, currently not across the line, is FF Devon. He seems to be in close contention with Arceus. Gap is 3 seconds. And there we see FF Devon comes home to take P7. Arceus takes P8. A gap of 4 seconds between the two, so very firm between them. And that is a very significant gap there between the top 10. We still haven't seen the 10th driver come home, which is Father Ewok, the second driver of that Dolphin Electric Racing team. They've got very good points between the two of them. Both drivers in their points, one of which getting very significant points in P4, the second down in P10. Not quite sure what he's doing on that back straight. Sorry, home straight, swerving. Has he just lost the position? No, that was Titanic. He must have been lapped there. That was slightly worrying. Thought he'd lost the position, but it appears he has lapped Titanic. So that was none of his concern, was just unlapping him. And I believe that's nearly all of the drivers now come through the finish line. So the podium finishers will now be making their way to Parc Fermé and to get on that podium. Obviously, reminder, Officer Cap came home to take the win. Dark YZ92 in that Cognizant vehicle coming home to take P2, and Nicholas, after an unlucky through incident, comes home to take P3.
Dark is extremely lucky there is no collision physics, well, not collision physics, but damage physics, more or less, in I8, otherwise he will have retired multiple times over during that race.
Yeah, definitely. think there had been quite a few unsafe re-entries to the track as well from those incidents. As Duck there talking to his team owner of Shady. He's apologising for the fact that he was unable to bring home that P1, but still significant points which he got for that team, and wait to see the updated standings, see how he did for himself and for the constructors. So he finished P3 in Diria. And we see the drivers making their way towards the podium now, and I'm being told, interestingly, the driver who's disconnected currently is going to be Trash Ed Meme. I'm being told is not being signed correctly or hasn't been signed at all by the team owner. Therefore, his vehicle is likely to be disqualified. He won't be getting any points, nor will his team. I'm not sure if there'll be any sanction brought towards them, but for sure there will be no points collected by that vehicle. Which is unfortunate for Epic Dude, the owner of that team, recently become the owner of that team. Taking a look at that podium there on the right, the drivers are waiting to make their way on to the podium. The 3 drivers and the team representative.
It isn't really as unfortunate for Epic Dude as it is his own mistake. He should know to actually sign drivers.
Yeah, I mean, that comes with responsibility of owning a team, and unfortunately mistakes like that can cost quite significantly. It is only P9, so not any major points, but, you know, it's still points lost, which could have been obtained by another driver, so we never like to see that. As we're waiting for the drivers to make their way onto the podium, not sure quite what the wait is now, possibly the director's just getting it all sorted. And we continue to wait now. I'm not quite sure what the wait is exactly, but we still are waiting. So we wait to hear more information on that incident involving Trashed Meme, but definitely reports are suggesting that he has not been signed, so those points are not going to count. As we are continuing to wait now for this podium. Apologies for the inconvenience of this wait.
Yeah, it seems as if they're having technical issues with the music that is typically used for the podium ceremony. Let's see if we can fix this.
Not quite sure where the director of Saying Stam is. There we see Lanor coming out onto the podium. Not quite sure what he's doing there. He definitely didn't finish on P1. There's a line guy trying to kind of escort him off there. Appears Sangstam is back in the game. Must have been some kind of technological issue.
So our man in third place,
Yeah, with a very long username.
Nicholas.
Nicholas 123 DYUR1. And in second place, there you can see him walking out to take his position, is Dark YZ92. What a great race he has driven. Really unfortunate to not take the win, but you know, some days aren't always yours, and I'm sure he'll be back to fight for P1 for next weekend in 2 weeks'
And
time.
your winner for today, the Innotech driver, Officer Cap, as he takes his position on the podium, celebrating as he comes out. I'm sure he will definitely want to celebrate this win, winning by over 10 seconds. And the most important part, as always, the champagne, or the rose water in our case.
And thank you very much to our members who have subscribed to the Ion Racing YouTube channel. You can do so by pressing that join button right next to the subscribe button, which I also suggest you press as well to help us reach our next milestone of 4,000 subscribers. And thank you very much for 3,000 subscribers, which we recently hit. I think it was 4 days ago. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for that, and thank you to the members who help support both the media team and the entirety of Ion, the Ion Racing community. And it seems there's a bit of a brawl going on the podium. And thank you very much for joining us with this IA Championship race. Make sure to catch us later for the Formula E race, which will be commentated by D-Pod and Blade Challenger. So that'll be on later today, and catch us also next weekend where we go back into our Block A racing. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.